The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the Del Mar TV Foundation or the City of Del Mar.
Del Mar Hot Topics, where we discuss issues that are important to you. And now your host, Richard Levesque.
Last year's firestorms and mandatory evacuations snapped us into reality. It can happen here. Join us for another Hot Topics, Flaming Destruction, Fire Danger in Del Mar. I'm your host, Richard Levesque, and you're watching Hot Topics.
Scarcely more than a stone's throw away from the beaches of Del Mar, Crest Canyon provides a trail system of coastal scrub that can seem a world away from the hustle and bustle of a busy life. Leading up to Crest Canyon is a fire ladder of trees, old homes, and shake roofs. Wildfires are a part of our beautiful landscape. When the winds suck up what moisture the drought has left in the scrub, it leaves us with a highly volatile situation, and also very vulnerable. Only about 5 miles divide our city of Del Mar and active fire zones of Fairbanks Ranch and Rancho Santa Fe. It's not a matter of if, but of when.
You're watching Hot Topics, and with me to discuss fire hazards and prevention in Del Mar is Deputy Fire Chief Dismas Abelman, concerned citizen Grant Clark, and Del Mar Solana Beach Community Response Team Chairman Bernhard Gerstanger. Chief Abelman, why is Del Mar fire an issue now? And why hasn't it been an issue of, say, 10, 15, 20 years ago?
Richard, it's really a combination of factors. We live in an urban community that has what we call a wildland-urban interface on the east edge. Most large-scale fires move from east to west. They're very often driven by the Santa Ana winds. And so our combination of having a community that has a large amount of vegetation, we have large, beautiful trees, we have a wildland-urban interface, we have streets that tend to be very narrow, creating difficulty for access. The hillsides were built on a hillside, which also allows assist fire and burning. And we have weather that supports rapid combustion of fuels. So it's really this combination of factors that's made it the issue.
And why now? Are you more concerned now than 5 years ago?
Me as a professional, I'm only slightly more concerned now. The danger has always been there. Our perception has changed as to what the danger is, but the danger hasn't all of a sudden gotten a lot greater since September of last year.
Okay. Bernhard, what does CERT do? What do you do? What's your job?
CERT stands for Community Emergency Response Team, and we're volunteers that are trained by the fire departments in basic rescue skills, basic first aid, basic fire suppression, and really we're supposed to come out and help our neighbors in case of a regional disaster. Are
you concerned now more than before?
Not really, but I think fires will be more frequent. I think over the last 10, 15 years, it's been shown that the wildfires are more frequent and also more fierce, really.
They're more fierce and more frequent.
That's what, yeah.
Gotcha. How does a homeowner feel about this?
Well, I've only been in Del Mar about 5 years now, so I don't know that I'm the most qualified person, but when I look at photos of Del Mar in the past, even 30 or 40 years ago, it strikes me that the topography was a bit different. We really have grown a tremendous amount of fuel in the last few decades, and when you take a look around the neighborhood in which you and I live, you see a tremendous amount of growth and almost solid canopies of trees. And when we look at things like large eucalyptuses hanging over houses, we wonder, is that just a Roman candle waiting for the next spark?
Yeah, Grant's got an excellent point. When we did the footage from the excerpt that's been shown on your show, one of the things I noticed, because I flew in the helicopter when we were taking that footage, and one of the things you really are impressed with is there is basically a solid canopy of green from Crest Canyon west towards Camino del Mar. It's very interesting because you can actually see the dividing line between San Diego and Del Mar. Del Mar, green, beautiful. San Diego, it's a lot more sparsely vegetated. So it really does create a concern because the potential is there. There is contiguous fuel from Crest Canyon basically all the way down to Camino del Mar, and that does create concern.
So Del Mar's love of trees is a mixed thing.
Sure. I mean, we all, well, I don't want to wax legalistic here, but I can't help it as
You're an attorney.
A recovering lawyer.
A recovering attorney, yeah.
Yes. You know, the city has statutes that deal with this, and you can see that they've struggled to deal with the balance between views and the natural beauty of trees. But the element of fire is one that really hasn't played, it doesn't seem that much of a role in the lawmaking process. You have the statute looking at the balance between trees and the right of folks to have a reasonable view. But the fire danger really doesn't seem to have played a role in that rulemaking as of yet.
So what should cities like Del Mar do? And for example, Crest Canyon. Well, let's take that. Let's take that question. What should Del Mar as a city be doing about the fire danger?
Well, I think I should talk about what we are doing, because really it's not just what we should do, but what we are doing. We are presently conducting inspections on homes in Crest Canyon. The homes in the wildland and urban interface are regulated by a stricter code than the homes outside of the wildland and urban interface. That means that there's homes in a portion of Del Mar that are regulated more tightly than homes in other portions of Del Mar. And we're presently doing inspections. We're conducting inspections on these homes. These people have a higher level of responsibility for both maintaining brush clearance and also for construction types. And so we really want to get out. We want to do inspections in Crest Canyon. That being said, Crest Canyon is not the only challenge in Del Mar. Our fire danger is throughout the entire city. If the conditions are right, we could have a fire that starts in Del Mar that spreads rapidly throughout the entire city. So what we also want to do is we want to address code issues. We are presently updating our code. I'm going to be bringing a new fire code in front of the city council in late April. This will give us the opportunity to look at some tighter codes as it relates to things like vegetation and also construction types. And we're also conducting educational process. I appreciate being on the show because one of the things I'm trying to do is get out and get the word out. One of the things we also do is we offer voluntary inspections in homes that are not in the WUI, which is the vast majority of the city.
The WUI is?
Wildland Urban Interface.
Got it.
Those homes on Crest Canyon are WUI homes, either in the canyon or immediately adjacent to it. The rest of Del Mar is considered not WUI and not regulated by that code.
Yes. And in terms of your experience with CERT, what concerns you? Does Crest Canyon, for example, concern you?
Oh yeah, certainly. You know, one of the things that Dismas just mentioned is the educational aspect, and as CERT as an organization tries to help educating the citizens about how to reduce the risk around your home and how to prepare yourself for an evacuation or for a disaster in general. So I think you know, it really is important that all of us do our homework right at our homes and keep things tidy, clean up, take care of vegetation issues, home construction issues, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's very important.
If I may jump in, because Bernhard is really a driving force behind our community emergency response team. He's really done a very good job at getting this word out, being an ambassador to the professional responders. One of the things we know in these large-scale disasters is the emergency responders will be overwhelmed. And so what we need, we need the public, the general community, to take steps prior to the emergency happening. I always like the picture of the person out with a garden hose trying to put out this huge fire as it's coming up to his house. It's not a very effective approach. So what we really want is we want people to, before the fire happens, become part of the solution as opposed to being just waiting for the emergency responders to come in. That's what CERT has done such a wonderful job. That's what Bernhard has really done a great job of getting that message out to the members of the public.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. We'll talk more about what we can do individually in a few minutes. What about the whole, you live in a community that is full of trees, beautiful trees, beautiful views. Delmartians love their trees. Do you see that's going to be a problem for people?
Oh, I think sure it is. One of the questions that ran through my mind when I was listening to the chief speak about this is, at some point, is there a place where education ends and perhaps enforcement begins? In other words, is there any notion that the town will at some point say voluntary compliance hasn't been sufficient, the risk is too great, and do you anticipate any type of collision at that point between homeowners and the city?
Absolutely. We use all the tools that are available to us, and the WI homes are a perfect example. If the people that live in the WI in Crest Canyon choose not to do any vegetation clearance, then enforcement does become becomes a reality. We have to be good neighbors, and it's really important that if I do a good job of making sure my home is fire safe, but my neighbors choose not to, then you still have that contiguous fuel chain. So that is where enforcement comes in, and that's where our codes are being written. The codes that are proposed, quite frankly, are a little bit stronger. They have a little bit more teeth in them. If I do see overgrown vegetation within this is what I proposed, if I do see overgrown vegetation within the community, I have the ability to take some mitigative efforts. My first step is always education. But if there is that imminent fire danger, if the risk is there to the community as a whole, I do have the ability to act.
Now what's an overgrown tree? Is a torrey pines a danger, or is it just a eucalyptus? Does anyone have an idea?
I'll tackle that. I'll tackle that. I'd be happy to tackle that. I'm not a huge lover of eucalyptus trees. They are oily and they will burn. But it's really important that we can't vilify a single species of tree due to this fire danger. Any tree that is well maintained, you have good separation.
What does that mean? What's well maintained mean?
Separation. My concern is separation from other trees, so that you don't have the ability for a fire to go from tree top to tree top, so it can't run laterally, and also maintenance of what we call ladder fuels, making sure that those fuels on the ground are taken away so that it can't get up into the tree. So that's really what I mean. Any tree that's well maintained, it's separate, will do very, very well. What we've had over the years is we've had a lot of big, beautiful trees, and they are growing together.
Got it. So the canopy you were concerned about.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think people are generally aware that the idea is to try to build a buffer zone around the home so you don't have fuel running right up to the structure. But I think ironically what happens is that often people clear that area and then you have this enormous canopy growing right over, and it gets more and more solid as the years go by. And that sounds like exactly the kind of problem you're talking about, where one tree overlapping another.
Yeah, I was a call firefighter for the Delmar Fire Department in 1987, and I watched a city council meeting talking about trees, views, and vegetation. We're now having this conversation 20 years later, and really what we need to do is be aware of the fact that these trees have gotten bigger, they've gotten more full, and they're growing together more. And that's exactly it. It's not enough just to clear the area around your home. You've got to look up as well.
That's very interesting. So we're saying that we have to keep fuel away from the home, down on the ground. We have to keep fuel away from above the structures, and we have to prune our trees, and we have to keep our yards clean of fuel. Is Crest Canyon, who takes care of Crest Canyon that is outside the property owner's boundary line?
That's a wonderful question, Richard, and I really appreciate it, because what most residents don't realize about Crest Canyon is once you go outside the property lines, it's almost exclusively in the city of San Diego. Our ability to do any modification in Crest Canyon is very, very limited. And so we were able to do some modification in 2005. We had a grant, and we actually went in on private property and some public lands and did some modification. By and large, what we really need to do is focus on the private property, because our ability to maintain any part of Crest Canyon outside of the private land is very, very low.
Thank you, Chief. We need to take a quick break. We'll be right back to talk about fire danger in Del Mar.
Could you dedicate yourself to a worthy cause? Could you go the distance to keep a child healthy? Could you travel to the other side of the world to help eliminate polio? Could you? A Rotary member could. We're dedicated to connecting children with vaccinations and ending polio worldwide. All it takes is one person to make a difference, like me, like you. Could you help change the world? Will you? Rotary. Humanity in motion.
Welcome back to Hot Topics, talking about fire danger and prevention in Del Mar. With us discussing the topic are Fire Chief Abelman, Bernard Geierstanger, and concerned citizen Grant Clark. Thank you for being with us. Chief, what can citizens do to help the problem?
Well, Richard, we already mentioned the requirements of the residents in the wildland-urban interface.
Yes.
They are required to maintain their property and their vegetation, and we are currently doing inspections in those properties. People that don't live in those WUI homes are also encouraged to contact the fire department. We have already gone out and done inspections where people can voluntarily maintain or modify their property to make it safer in the event of a fire.
Great. We actually have a clip of that, so let's take a look at what you can do.
This home, although located at the top of a hillside, has done a lot to prepare in the event of a fire. They have a good defensible space around it, and they have a good chance of surviving if a fire does occur. The fire is going to move around. It's going to find fuel on the sides, and it's going to move around and get into the dry fuel that we see located on this hillside. What we have here is hardscaping, which will also not burn or help transmit the spread of a fire. And then very low-lying, well-irrigated, well-spaced plants that are up close to the house that will also prevent the spread of fire in a wildland situation. Let me take you around to the other side of the house. They've got a good green belt. They've got the open space right around their house that has a nice, well-irrigated lawn. It's green, it's well-maintained, and it's going to help protect the structure should a fire arise. The construction type of the house. One of the things you'll notice about this house is that it has Spanish tile roofs. Spanish tile roofs are non-combustible. If an ember comes that is driven by the fire, rides on the wind, and lands on top of the structure, it's not going to get going. It's not going to probably start the house on fire. The number one contributing factor to losing homes in wildland fire situations is shake shingle roofs. The wood shingle roofs will dry out over time and will transmit the fire to the house. One of the other things that they've done is they have spark arresters on all the chimneys on the house and even in the fireplace outside. If they have a nice little barbecue outside, have a little fire in here, there's no chance of the embers escaping and starting a fire in the canyon. This is a really good way of keeping a fire from getting started. The chimneys and even the backyard chimneys.
Grant, did you get any ideas about what you can do as a homeowner?
Well, sure. I think we probably have a couple things we still need to attend to, but largely I was pleased to see that we're mostly in compliance with the suggestions. But, you know, I live up at the top of Zappos Street, and I have a long view all the way down to the beach. And one thing that strikes me is it's almost a solid canopy all the way down, and it just suggests we have an awful lot of work to do in the city.
Okay. So sitting up on the hill, you're worried, even though you're in compliance, that canopy could go off and reach your house.
When those flaming chunks of embers are flying at 60 miles an hour, they'll skip my house just fine, or other folks, and land somewhere down the hill. So it doesn't make me feel particularly comfortable about the circumstances that we've got right now.
Okay. What are you thinking about that?
I understand his concerns. It's a community challenge. It's not a single homeowner challenge. It's a community challenge, and we need to address it as such. We need to look at both our property and look around so that if each neighbor, if each member of the community takes care of their property, we will be able to take care of themselves, and we're going to be in a lot better chance to survive next time it does take place.
And what do you suggest people do to survive better should this disaster happen?
Well, it's all about getting organized and planning ahead of time. And so what I would like to see is that more people actually host some of our Are You Ready presentations that we give. We actually go into homes of people, hosts, and talk to you and your neighbors and your friends that you invite about an hour about how to get prepared for disasters, not just fires, but in general. It involves, planning for a go bag, planning for evacuation, what things to take, what can you do around your house to be better prepared.
Oh, that's wonderful. So folks can call the fire department to find out if their house is in compliance. They can call you to see how to prepare for disaster. What else can they do? Is there anywhere else they can go?
Well, I really think that you're hitting the real high points. The day of the event is not the day to try and figure out what needs to be done. The day of the event is you get to play the hand that has been dealt you. So what you want to do is you want to take as many chips and put them on your corner as possible before that takes place. That means making sure that the vegetation is cleared out around your homes, your construction is of such a type that is more fire resistive, and that you get involved with something like CERT or Are You Ready to make sure that although you may not be you may not be one of the emergency responders, you're not one of the victims. It's kind of a multi-tiered approach that's going to make the outcome most positive, if the event does actually affect you.
Do we still have wood shingles in Del Mar? We
do. And one of the things I've talked about is construction type. The greatest concern when you talk about construction type is the roofing. The reason for this being that, as we saw in the last October's fires, the embers are coming from many different directions. And the roof is the most vulnerable part of the house in that respect. A fire can be started in your house from the bottom side of the roof, from the top of the roof. It can get into the eaves. It can get the roof a lot of different ways. So what you want is when that ember lands on your roof, you don't want it to start the house on fire. When you have shake shingle roofs on top of your home, you have the potential for just an ember floating for maybe a quarter mile away, landing on top of your roof and starting your roof on fire. That's also the reason that we're concerned about the canopy of trees that grow together. If you clear out the area low-lying around your home, that's great. It makes it defensible, but you still need to look up. You still need to be concerned about the ember floating in on the air, and wood shake shingle roofs that have had the opportunity to dry out are just going to actually help the fire get started.
Any thoughts about that, Bernard?
Well, during the wildfire, I had an opportunity to watch the operations of the EOC over in Solana Beach in the city. It was
the OC?
EOC, Emergency Operations Center. It was very impressive how fire department and city staff worked together. It was really impressive to see that. But like the chief is saying, at the time of the fire, there's not much that you can really do. But what I also realized is that for these big events, the fire departments really are outgunned by these huge wildfires. And I think as a citizen and as a homeowner, I think we really need to get acquainted to the idea that we're going to have to spend more on fire protection. And probably the state, even on a state level, I think we're going to have to address this issue that we just don't have enough capabilities to respond to these disasters. You know, here in Del Mar, we have a real issue with our fire station. It really is in dire need of repair. It really needs to be fixed. And and also fire engine wise, they could handle another backup engine too. So, and staffing is somewhat okay in Del Mar, but the surrounding communities are just really understaffed if you go by number of firefighters per population.
So do you, go on, Grant.
Well, I was just going to say, it strikes me that this still seems to be a bit of a top-down effort. And I'm wondering, are you seeing enough community involvement? Is it coming from the grassroots up yet, or is it still a sort of a push-down kind of educational approach? Because you'd think neighborhoods and neighbors would be talking about this a lot more than they are right now.
That's a very, very good point, that we still don't have a grassroots, real intense involvement with let's get the danger under control before something happens.
Right. I think right now it is grassroots, and I am very pleased with the response of the community as a whole. People are inviting us into their homes to look at what they can do to make their homes safer, and I'm very grateful for that. That's right now. 6 months from now, I'm very confident that the community will have forgotten this emergency. They will have moved on, and I think that that is why we need to seize the moment and codify the changes we would like to make, so that 6 months from now, a year from now, when it's not in our immediate memory banks, we are still doing those things to make our home safer.
Well, if we know that it's inevitable there will be a fire, if we know what we have to do to stop it, isn't the city legally obligated to do something? We have a few minutes. Anybody want to tackle that? You're the recovering attorney?
I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole, Richard. I must tell you, that's a very complex subject that I wouldn't even begin to give you an opinion on. Nice try, but I'm not going near it.
Well, that's all we have time for. I hope you found this information helpful. We all want to protect our homes and families, and if we all take a few steps at a time, we can achieve this. Thanks to my guests. I'm your host, Richard Levac. Tune in again for another Hot Topic.